It was the 90s. MTV was still around. From fiery screams, fuzzy guitars to West Coast hip hop, music was driving culture like never before. And the artists, inspired by the generations before them, added a sonic dimension to this decade. While technology made compact discs portable, it was like the future had finally arrived. CDs took over the world by storm, and as their sales shot up, the record labels were swimming in cold hard cash. At their peak, the labels were selling CDs by weight. The demand was insatiable, and then the music stopped.
Students are making good use of the internet. The latest software makes it a bit too easy for students to access their favorite tunes.
A website by the name of Napster started gaining traction. It was growing faster than their team could write code. Millions of people were using it. Buying a $20 CD was unthinkable when you can download all the music you could ever want for free and share it. The internet had happened, and for the record labels, this meant that the party was over. Naturally, they fought back. What followed was a never-ending game of whack-a-mole between the labels and Napster's creatively named knockoffs like Aimster, Maxter, Grokster, Madster, and many more. When that did not work, the labels got creative and decided to teach their customers a lesson. They hired lawyers by the dozen for a shakedown like never before and started suing college students and teenagers, going after their lunch money.
The RA has been suing college students for years now. In fact, they've sued over 20,000 individuals all throughout this country.
At some point, this started getting so absurd that people stopped showing up in court hearings, and the labels lost billions in the process, which drove them straight into the arms of Apple, and iTunes was born. Apple's then CEO, Steve Jobs, was convinced that people wanted to own their music, claiming that the iPod will transform the music industry. And Apple, being the marketing machine it is, sold 100 million iPods in just over 5 years. At the time, more than 1 billion tracks were pirated each month, and it took Apple 3 years to sell 1 billion tracks. Because on iTunes, people were able to cherry-pick the tracks for 99 cents a pop, and those downloads were not able to fill the gap. They were no match for the CDs. It was clear that piracy was flourishing and no one could do anything about it.
Europe's best-kept secret is out in the open. Spotify has landed in the USA.
It was then Spotify came along with the intention of making a better product than piracy and changed the music industry in the process. With Spotify's curated playlists, instead of top 40 tracks, we now had top 40,000, which helped discovery. And as more people turned to streaming, the revenue of the music industry started going up again. But Spotify was operating at a loss year after year. As you might have noticed, a lot of tech startups sacrifice money in the short term for growth in the long term because technology can be scaled to infinity, and as the company grows, their operating costs flatline and become easier to manage. But in case of Spotify, a growing subscriber base meant growing operating costs in form of royalties. You see, the way the music industry works is that the labels, and there are the big three, have the power of back catalogs, which cannot be circumvented because all the music needs to be on one platform for people to stay, and that's why the economics of Spotify's business model just did not work. And the company's balance sheet did not nearly represent its impact on the music industry. Spotify was looking for something which would give them control of the content they have on their platform. And after dabbling in video and TV production, they found the next opportunity. In a press conference, Spotify's founder, Daniel Ek, mentioned that Spotify's business was not only about music anymore, but it was about the future of audio. And if we look at Spotify's recent acquisitions, like Anchor, which makes creating and publishing podcasts easier, Megaphone, a podcast advertising technology, it becomes clear that this is not just about hosting podcasts and taking a cut from the subscription fees. Apple is already doing that quite well. It's about creating a new business model for advertising. If we go back 20 years, when the web first came along, it was Google who centralized the search and built a business around web advertising when no one thought it was possible. Fast forward 10 years, Facebook arrived and did the same thing for mobile advertising. And if we look at the growth and consumption of podcasts in the last decade versus the ad dollars poured into the system, we can see that there's a huge gap, and there lies the opportunity. Spotify already has millions of users on their platform, and if they can centralize the audio advertising space while making podcasting easy for creators, interactive for consumers, and measurable for advertisers, Spotify will no longer be dependent on the record labels for revenue. And if Spotify can pull it off, they won't just survive but win the game, changing another industry in the process.